Hello and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. We are talking about Mistborn, the Well of Ascension, chapters 20, 21, and 22. I am Joe, and with me as always is...
Jaymee.
Data.
And Dak.
That's right. We're talking about these chapters wherein we get to discuss a little bit about the plan. Ellen finally stands up for himself. Tindwyl questions him about whether or not Vin's the right companion for him. We get to see Cett's daughter and Breeze's love affair unfold. And we also get to see Vin test Ham, and she and OreSeur seem to grow a little bit closer. So that is what we'll be talking about today. Hold on to something, everyone. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
Elders, tellers, keepers of the bygone, treasures of the dirt. Russian string, we scribble and sing and dig for the annals of the earth. And we try to keep a little beauty in the world. All that died, we keep it in our hands.
Yep, that's right. We got some interesting personal stuff happening. I'm curious what you guys think specifically about Breeze and the new girl, and what you think, how much of anything you think was actually going on there. Joe seems to think there's a full-blown love affair happening. But anyway, what did you guys think of these 3 chapters overall?
Yeah, again, pretty good chapters. I really enjoyed OreSeur and Vin's bonding in the 3rd chapter. I thought it was nice to actually see them somewhat making good out of their relationship. And yeah, Breeze's relationship out of nowhere was a little bit hilarious, but also quite a predicament I think that they're going to find themselves in there. I didn't see that coming like that. But yeah, some good character development, and Vin's sort of insecurities coming back in. I'm a little bit like, don't be that girl. Please don't be that girl. But
which girl? Hold on.
Just
There's
the
so many
whole,
daggers.
He's changing. What about me? Just like, I sort of hope that doesn't follow her for a really long time. Yeah, she can hang on to things. I don't know. I don't particularly like that, but I still love Vin as a character. I think she's pretty incredible, but I hope her and Ellen can just get through it. He's so in love with her. She just needs to stop questioning it. But I don't want her to become like that relationship's undoing because she's questioning everything, which is a thing that lots of girls do. But yeah, I really hope that sort of doesn't hang around for a really long time. But otherwise, yeah, good chapters. Enjoyed sort of seeing what everyone was up to. Not really any action to speak of, but I don't think it'll be long before we get back into that side of things too.
So Vin's thoughts read kind of true to you. I've never been a teenage girl, so I don't know for sure that any of it actually sounds realistic. But
I mean, like, as a former teenage girl, yeah, like some of it does, but it's also, and like, you got to remember she's really young, but yeah, she's
really young and really traumatized.
Yeah, but she's becoming this really confident and skilled person and a really strong character, and I'm just like, oh, please don't go down all this self-doubt path, and like, don't sabotage it. Like, it could go really wrong really quickly if she does, and I just don't sabotage your own relationship. That's not fair. don't do it. And like, super easy to say that from an outsider's perspective. Obviously, when you're in that relationship, it would be really different and difficult. And I mean, look, I've never dated the king either, so
Yes, sorry, listeners, I am not a king.
Spoiled it.
It turns out we're royal and we're sitting in our own palace right now recording our podcast.
No, at best I'm the guy who mops the throne room floor.
It's a bit harsh on yourself, but okay.
Yeah, I was about to say, at best, jeez.
Yeah, I hope she doesn't stick in that sort of mind frame for too long. I hope she comes out of it, really, is, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, these chapters, pretty cool, interesting stuff. It kind of makes me a little more uneasy about where they're headed. So, I see where Jaymee's coming from. And if you think about it from Vin's perspective, it's like this guy that she's in love with is changing, and she has felt that her place is to be by his side to protect him. but he's becoming something that doesn't need her protection specifically, which is not necessarily true. It's just the way that she sees it. I wonder if that's kind of, it feels like that's where her head is, right? She's like, well, if he doesn't need me to protect him anymore, who's to say he'll need me at all? In which case, maybe like he's going to move on from me, which is obviously not the way that she should be thinking. And based on what the reader knows, Tindwyl asks him about her and basically persuades him to basically confess that he loves her and that he wants to be with her, but she's just not ready to be married. So the reader knows that that's not true. My guess is, based on what we've seen so far, is that the author is going to basically have a love triangle between Vin, Zane, and Elend. That's my guess based on
we got an early predicament.
Oh yeah, I guess it is an early predicament. Yeah, it seems like there's going to be some kind of love triangle going on between them. She's going to have to choose, because Zane, like in the chapters, especially this go round, you hear it reflected in her head, like his words. It's like, you don't belong with them. They don't understand you. It's like, we understand each other. Basically, he's trying to say, like, we should be together because, they don't understand you, right? It's like the neg hit on move, right? It's like, nobody understands you, but I understand you. So you've got that going on. The most interesting thing to me about these chapters is the conversation that she has with the Kandra, because if my other theory is right, then this is kind of a weird conversation for them to be having. Is he trying to ingratiate himself to her? Is he actually feeling these feelings and they're actually having a moment together for real, even if it's not actually OreSeur? So I'd just be interested to know now if my theory is correct, because I don't necessarily think that conversation makes it incorrect. I think it would just make it even more layered and interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, I was actually gonna ask you about that, because it kind of puts a different, because we talked about last time, like from his perspective, maybe he would think they were suspecting him, but now from his perspective, if he's being true, then their relationship is very different.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, knowing that he was under, if he drafts Kandra especially, like he made all of those things where he was basically, without saying it, saying, yes, people have beaten me and treated me terribly, like that definitely could have still happened even if he's not OreSeur, and he could definitely still be talking about himself. But
I mean, yeah, you don't doubt that Straff would beat on somebody if he got in the mood. And also the idea of the love triangle is interesting. I do have to say, just my 2 cents, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, if you ever have to make such a choice between a king and a crazy guy who hears voices in his head, my recommendation would be the king. But that's just me.
Well, does she just knows that he thinks he's insane. She doesn't know he hears voices yet, does she?
That's true. That's a good point.
Not that I'm condoning it in any way, but for fuck's sake,
so
do not go with the insane guy.
So a little bit crazy is okay, but not too crazy, like not voices crazy.
Yeah, no. If they go around announcing they're insane, they either are or they're trying to in some way impress you. Either way, don't go for it.
Impress.
Yeah, because every girl loves to hear from a possible beau, I'm insane.
You could just see like his Tinder profile or something, and it'd be like, yep, completely crazy. Like, you want to get on it.
How many people have you met that just do weird shit to try and impress other people, and like they don't realize this? Like, you actually don't have any social skills. People don't want to hear that.
It's funny you say that, because I just the other day read a story about the teenage guy in Australia who jumped into a lake to wrestle an alligator to get a tourist's phone number because he was trying to impress her.
See?
That is not a thing you should do.
No, don't do that.
No, definitely
It didn't work out well for him, except that she agreed to see a movie with him after.
Okay.
So it fucking worked?
It worked in that I think he was also like horribly injured. Like it said the gator or the crocodile or alligator, I don't remember what it was. It bit him.
It was in Australia to be a croc.
Okay. It was like it held on to him and dragged him for a while, and then was about to go into like its death roll when he poked it in the eye and made it let go, and he got away. So he was pretty injured.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's
No.
like your choice of wingman was not a good one.
Hey, Croc, you want to help me out? He's like, no, I want to kill you, though. Now you guys talking about Tinder profiles, I just really want Zane's to be like, I'm crazy for ... and then it says, like, Kandra wolfhounds.
Voice of God. He just sounds really religious, and then you realize. Sorry, I had to look up that story. He was an 18-year-old from Queensland.
Yeah, that sounds about
right. It sounds right. Probably north.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. You guys are laying on some thick shade.
Yeah, you may want to cut that out.
We
need to
just
boost our
alienated
Australian
everybody's-
listener base.
the pointy end of the country.
Okay, sorry, Dak, go ahead. What did you think of the chapters?
It's like when I talk about people who live in the Panhandle.
No, don't do that. They're horrible human beings, but we don't need to get into that.
So I think the conversation between Vin and OreSeur has been my favorite part of this book so far. Yeah, I just like what they were saying to each other and how they were just laying it all out. I just really enjoyed hearing about that. I really hope that it is really OreSeur and the moment was genuine, because I thought, holy shit, these two are just like fucked up, and now they're fucked up together. And I think that might actually be good for the both of them. I no longer think OreSeur is going to betray them. I think there might be a tipping point. This might have been a tipping point for him, and it's like, all right, this girl's all right. So that was the highlight of these chapters for me. I liked all the other stuff, the Elend and Tindwyl stuff, and it's like, look, it's good, but it's like, all right, it's the usual, teach someone to be a king, or teach someone, to be a member of high society. Like, okay, yep, cool. And I get that it's necessary. It's just like, all right, I want to get back to the action. And then seeing Breeze and is it Allrianne? I don't know.
Yeah, it's her name's weird. I in my head I say it Allrianne, but I don't know.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah, like that was fairly amusing. I can't wait to see how that shit just throws a rock at that hornet's nest. My immediate thought was just like, now if this was a Song of Ice and Fire, everyone in this room would be going, sweet, we just got ourselves a hostage. But no one was saying it here. I'm just like, God damn it, you guys are too nice to be in politics.
Well, and I don't even remember who it was, but someone says it, and they're like, Vin's like, what, really? He's like, someone had to say it.
I think I missed that.
I'm almost sure that conversation happened. Could have been in my mind, I guess.
It definitely did happen.
No, it's a very it's a very quick, like, one sentence, and Vin reacts, and then it's over.
I think that Vin is also the one who's horribly offended by this. She's like, I'd much rather go and kill this guy than something like that. Let's get into these, I guess. The first epigraph is maybe the longest one that we've had, actually, and it's not really all that informative. He's like, after a few years, he started to notice the signs, and he says, I am a terrorist world bringer, after all. And I think we've heard the term world bringer maybe once before in here.
Yeah, we've definitely caught that before.
And he's just like, but we're not all religious. Some, such as myself, are more interested in other topics. You notice he doesn't say anything about he wants to know if trees can talk. He's like, I'm not gonna sound stupid
the question,
here. But he says that he couldn't help but become more interested in the anticipation, capital A, as Alendi seemed to fit the signs so well. Ooh.
The impression I've gotten from these epigraphs is he's basically just found this dude in the street and started hanging around with him. He gave him a job, and then it's like, you know what? You could be God.
You could be the prophesied one. You might be Harry Potter.
And the guy's just like, dude, I'm just here to make some money.
Yeah.
Well, no, apparently when he finds out, he like perpetuates the myth himself. To like, that's what we found out earlier.
Well, eventually.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Do you think even at like 30, they're still calling Harry the boy who lived? He's like, hey, I'm a man now.
I felt like probably by the end of the book, where he manages to kill Voldemort and stuff, that he went from being the boy who lived to like being Harry Potter, the guy who offed Voldemort. So
the man who killed.
Yeah, something like
that. The
that.
Dark Lord. Yeah. Well, he was the boy who lived, then the chosen one, and then I guess the hero.
I guess it depends what people remember him for. Because, I mean, people still think of Macaulay Culkin as the Home Alone kid, even though he's 40.
Yeah. In a much bigger sense, aren't we all the boys who lived, if you're a boy?
Well, I'm about to say, Jamie's not a boy who lived. That's not fair.
No, who's our listener refers to it as Other Girl?
Yeah, Other Girl.
Yeah, that's all right. Just ignore Other Girl over here. It's fine.
Yeah,
Thanks, email guy.
Primary girl, not Other Girl.
I remember that guy. You guys are talking about Jackson, right?
Yeah, Jackson.
Something like that.
Good old Jefferson.
Fred. Whatever. So the chapter starts with everyone sitting around trying to convince Ellen that maybe this isn't such a good idea after all, which I thought we'd settled this. I guess they're talking about specifically him going into Straff's camp at this point, but we decided Ellen was going to go and start playing everybody. I feel like to argue the details of it now is kind of pointless, but maybe that's just me. He thinks that he can play his dad. Nobody else is confident in that. But then again, he knows his dad better than any of them, so really he's probably the best source for how that might go.
Plus, he's right. He has spent a lifetime being rather underestimated by his father, so his father is still continuing to do that.
We know that.
His dad's already shown his hand in that sense.
It's probably easy for Straff to believe, too, that he would come crawling back to him for help. Like, that's what Straff wants to happen. So to have Ellen do that, he's going to be like, he's playing into my cunning plan. He do exactly what I knew he'd do, because he doesn't actually give Ellen enough credit to, one, run anything successfully, and two, actually think for himself. So, Straff is going to just really be like, yes, this is working. That's what he wants to believe.
Yep. So,
God, as soon as you said that thing about the cunning plan, all I heard in my head was like, his real name is Straff Brannigan. My failure son is coming back to give me the city.
Send wave after wave of my own men at them.
Right, man?
Zane is Kiff.
You suck.
You suck.
Oh, Zane as Kiff.
The key
Now,
to
I want to see that.
the element of surprise. Surprise!
Surprise. I have to see if this fan art exists. Excuse me for one moment.
Yes! I've created another monster.
Mistborn Zane as Kiff. No.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be your Instagram post.
if it existed, absolutely. It doesn't seem to exist. Although when you search for Zane and Mistborn, there's an awful lot of Zane and who I assume is Ellen in like weird semi-romantic looking poses.
What?
Some nasty slash fiction.
Yeah.
It's incest.
Yeah.
That's
anyway,
what it is.
I'm just assuming
Yeah,
that's who the other guy is from what I'm seeing, but okay.
Straff meets Vin for the first time, and he's like, Vin, this is real velour. Have you ever felt real velour? Do you want some more of the champagne?
Straff is now forever going to be Zap
Like
Brannigan.
Fry Ellen.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, that totally fits him from the last book, especially, and it's sad that it does.
No good, it's full of steam!
Okay. But Ellen, in a very unfry-like moment, is like, I'm afraid this isn't a discussion. I've made my decision, and shuts down the conversation because it's no longer being productive.
That's a Fry moment. That's when he says, I'll be whatever I want to do.
Be whatever I want. Okay, sure.
Yep.
I'll buy that. And Vin doesn't think that the crew is going to take that, and yet they do, which Ellen's instantly like, oh, wow, Tindwell's right. If I act like this, then they will respect me. Although it doesn't stop him from,
when
like...
I tell people to shut the hell up, they shut the hell up.
Yeah, when you're the king, sometimes that works. Apparently.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop Ellen from continuing to argue, like, a page later where he's like, now, see, you're being unfair, and going back into the same kind of speech patterns that she's tried to train out of him at this point.
So
then he immediately turns around.
Vin catches him. It's like he's doing the fist clenching thing, and then later on Tindwell says, "Will you stop doing that?
You gotta stop it. Stop that, dude."
It's like they're on the same page here.
And then he realizes the way to get everybody even more on board with the plan is to be like, "Hey, I will take some protection. I'll introduce my dad to my girlfriend." And everyone's like, "Oh, okay now." Having Vin along makes this much safer. Which, to be fair, yeah. I agree. I don't know why you wouldn't have planned to take her in the first place.
I think they just assumed that he would not let anyone other than Ellen in. He fears for his life.
Heart full of neutralness. Okay. Neutrality. So, and Vin, towards the end of the scene is where Vin starts to think the thoughts that we were talking about, where she's like, doesn't he deserve a woman that he can feel like he can protect? And why am I thinking about our relationship so much lately? I never used to do that. And then here's Zane's kind of voice saying you don't belong with them and so on. He's insidiously put these thoughts in her head. And then Ellen brushes off the assembly to be like, hey, I don't have time for counterfeit coins. I made an assembly so they could handle this kind of stuff. Seriously. What do they need me for every little thing?
Which just immediately set alarm bells off in my head. It's like, oh god, that's got to be important. like somehow this is going to wind up being like a crucial part of the story. What is about these coins that is going to fuck everything up for the world?
Oh, about the coins. I thought you meant like brushing off the assembly and not paying attention to them was going to be, but the coins, interesting. Somebody.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, the assembly are going to take it badly, and that's going to cause problems as well. But I'm just like, now, was the coins just like the excuse for them to do that, or is it actually going to be the coins themselves that are a problem? Are the coins the missing adium?
Somebody's making counterfeit coins out of adium. That
seems like an extremely expensive production.
Yeah, so that's a seriously bad idea. They're worth way more than the coins that they're counterfeiting.
Yeah, no one's going to be looking for the coins, and this is their way of just disseminating them so like they're everywhere. Like someone's deliberately trying to cause anarchy.
So you're saying if I want to
Would actually be a
counterfeit
really clever
money,
plan.
I can use gold, and then no, wait.
People will gladly take your.
Well, because
counterfeit
unless you were Mistborn, like you wouldn't have a use for it. You wouldn't know if it's a coin. You wouldn't necessarily know that it's made of something else. It actually would be a really clever way to hide it. Brandon Sanderson, he doesn't drop things like that and have them go nowhere. Like, I agree with you, Duck.
Yeah,
I think it's going to come back. Yeah.
Interesting. One book and you guys are already like, I know how he does this stuff. Okay.
Well, it's like, what's that trope where people bite the coin to make sure it's real? Like someone's going to hand a Mistborn like one of these Atium coins, they bite it just to make sure it's like the real silver or whatever the metal's meant to be, and then all of a sudden they just go, whoa, what the fuck?
Okay. Fair enough. Counterfeit coins. We're going to put that up on the board. We're going to pin it up there on Dak's list of like, are these things going to come back? Because he had those characters from the last book that he wanted to see if any of them showed back up again. We'll put coins on the list.
Alrighty.
In the annotations, it's kind of just more of what we've been saying. Where it's like we get to see here that Zane already has his fingers on Vin's emotions. She's beginning to question and doubt. This, however, isn't a quick change. You should realize that all these questions were already there inside of her. Not only is she a teenage girl and living during an emotionally volatile part of her life, but she grew up learning to distrust and fear betrayal. Though she's getting better, old worries are still there, and even a little bit of scratching at them reveals them again. She never had to confront these things. Falling in with the crew and learning to trust was actually easy in the last book because Kelsier was there to make sure everything worked out right, and Vin was always underneath the watchful care of Sazed. Now she's having to face these things directly.
Plus, there's the added push you get out of Zane is a Mistborn. He can do the emotional allomancy, and Vin might not notice.
Yeah, she didn't have her copper on. Yeah,
she's not expecting it from Zane. Like she's expecting like the dancing and the fighting and all the iron and steel. Like she's not expecting. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna breeze you for a minute.
I'm gonna breeze you. That's the new verb. Okay.
Can't help it. I've gotten attached with that asshole.
He's not really an asshole.
Well,
he's not.
We find out more about that in these chapters too, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
But the part that worries me in this chapter is the next part where he pawns off the assemblies, like, I'll talk to them later. And then they're like, but what about this meeting that you're having? Wouldn't that like mean that you give up your power over the assembly to not give up the city? And he's like, oh no, this isn't an official parlay. This is an informal meeting. So my previous thing will stand. And I was like, I feel like that's stretching it, and maybe they will take issue with this.
Yeah,
but that's me.
Also dangerous.
At the end, towards the end of the meeting, Vin turns her attention to, once again, trying to figure out who the spy is. I almost said traitor, but that's not really. I've been watching like Among Us, and it's a whole thing. So she starts trying to read allomancy around people, and she does catch that Breeze is allomancing. He's breezing, as Dak said.
Yep.
And she's never gotten quite down what Marsh said about how, you might even be able to sense when people are, what emotion they're trying to soothe, or even when they're running low on their metals. Maybe she hasn't practiced quite enough on that. But she tries out Duralumin with her, what is it? It's bronze, because she's sensing him. I was trying to remember what Breeze burns, but that's not relevant. So.
Yeah, it's like the lessons from Marsh. Well,
she didn't get many of those, unless we missed some in the year.
Yeah, but it's like there's only one metal he can teach her on.
Right. And it works. She picks up that Breeze is soothing anxiety, nervousness, insecurity, worry from Elend as they're having this conversation. Even as he's making sarcastic comments and arguing with Elend, he's helping Elend be more confident.
I did really love that moment. I'm just like, oh, wow. bluster and bullshit. Is he even realizing he's doing this? He's actually just like, I want you to win, so I'm going to make you feel good about yourself. Oh.
And this is.
I mean, yes, it's making Ellen feel good about himself, but also it's in everybody's best interest that Ellen is confident. So
well, yes,
it's like,
but...
you know what? I'm just going to do this and make sure that happens. But I think it gives Vin a bit of reassurance too, that she's like, okay, Ellen is changing, but also Breeze is helping him. It's not a case of he doesn't need me. It's there's a little bit of a push in that direction as well.
And I like how she goes so far as to even think it's like Breeze never made sense in the crew to me because he was like more selfish and manipulative than these other guys. But now I kind of get it. He's not like what he's trying to show everyone. He's trying to hide how good a guy he is. So that's kind of fun.
He's the Booster Gold of the team.
But also, like, you think like Vin, he can't affect Vin's emotions. But there are other people, even though they're Allomancers on the crew, that he can affect and influence as well. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how much of that was he already doing in the crew, even in the last book? So I thought that was a really interesting perspective.
Yeah. I mean, he talked about even in the last book how he's we saw examples of him just nudging people slightly all the time. He's doing it almost constantly. So maybe he spent that entire time just making the entire crew feel better about what they were doing. What a guy. See, he's still a jerk on the outside, but
right. I mean, I think this gives us insight to kind of what we already knew, and Vin calls it out here. It's like she'd always thought Breeze was kind of a strange choice for the crew, but now she can see why he was chosen. It's like at heart, even though he's got this kind of weird pompous exterior, at heart he's obviously a really good dude. And he's constantly trying to help his friends, even without them knowing it.
Yep. So Kelsier knew what he was doing, is what we learned here when he recruited this dude.
Yeah.
And everyone leaves after the meeting, and Tindwell's like, "You are an embarrassment," when he asks how he did in that meeting. And Ellen's just like, "So you like to say," and starts cleaning up. She's like, "Stop that! You're a king. Kings don't clean." Then they have an argument about like the nature of ruling people, where he's like, a king should lead by consent of the citizens, and she's like, no, you have to be the person who makes decisions, and you look for advice, but you're in charge. And they both, I think, have points. And he tells her, oh, okay, so I have to make she wants him to make Cam call him Your Majesty, which he's like, I think that's not going to go over real well. He's not big on authority. And she's like, everyone should call you that. And he's like, well, what about you? It's like, well, I'm different. He's like, I don't see why you should be. You call me Your Majesty now. And she goes for it.
It's like, yeah. It's like, that was her goal all along, to like just say, all right, fine.
Making him more confident. Everyone's helping.
With mind games.
Yeah. There's a real interesting discussion about guilt here, where it's like, everything is your fault, but you don't have room to feel guilty about it or like sulk or anything. And it makes perfect sense what she describes. I don't think I'd ever thought about it that way. It's very like the buck stops here.
And while I did agree with her to a certain extent, it's also, at least to me, it seemed in a very apologetic view of being a monarch. It's like you have to be confident and act like you know what you're doing even when you don't, because if not, everything's going to plunge into chaos. So you can't feel guilt. You don't have time for it. Like, I get that. They want somebody, you don't want your leader, the leader of your entire nation or kingdom, what have you, to second guess himself or sulk or feel guilty because they really don't have time for it. But it also, I mean, and I guess there are real live monarchs like this. If you watch the dramatization of Queen Elizabeth in The Crown, she deals with this a lot as well. It's like, you can't show emotion. You don't have time to feel sorry for yourself. It's like, you are the crown. You are basically an image that can't be soiled by humanity. So I feel like she's asking a lot, and I think she knows she's asking a lot. I don't know if Ellen has fully grasped yet what being the king means, because he's going to have to do a lot of things that separate himself from the rest of humanity, and he seems to be like a philosopher, like a person who loves humanity. So that's probably a difficult ask for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, that makes some sense. I haven't seen the show, But
yeah, it's pretty interesting. It deals a lot with, especially in the first seasons, when she becomes queen, it deals a lot with what it means to be the queen and what it means to be a woman or a wife or a mother. So it's pretty interesting.
I think what struck me in this conversation is where she starts talking about the trait you need to have is arrogance. I'm like, when is that ever a trait anyone should have? And then she lays it out, and it's like, okay, I hate to admit it, but I kind of see your point there. The leaders have to believe that they are better than the other option, otherwise they would stand down immediately.
Yep. Yeah, it's really counterintuitive. I agree. When she's like, you have to have this arrogance, believing that you're going to do a better job than anyone else here, because if you weren't going to do the best job, then you shouldn't be here. And
I guess it's just the connotations of the word arrogance is always a negatively applied word, but like if she'd said self-belief, no one would question it.
And I'm hoping that this conversation, and it even kind of comes up during the conversation, but he's, from the beginning of this book, had this undercurrent of like, everyone wishes Kelsier was here, that he was the guy who was doing this job, and thinks that he would do a better job than me, basically. But this conversation is like, you can't think that. You're not allowed at this point to be like, oh, if only Kelsier was here instead, he's the one everybody wants and he would do a better job. You have to think that you are the person who needs to be here and can do this job. And that attitude alone, if he can land it, I think is going to really help him. And then we switch to, tell me, why haven't you married the young girl? He says that's a personal question, and she says good. Which, yeah, okay. And they have a funny little exchange about women and how he's like, Vin isn't like other women, and she's like, yeah, that's all of them. You don't know that many women, apparently. And she says that, if you want to look good in front of these people, you have to look better. You can't be seen having a mistress or whatever. You need to look like you're taking this stuff seriously. And it comes down to, because he doesn't know why she won't marry him, she's like, well, maybe you need somebody else. And he's like, no, you shut your mouth. You do not get to say bad things about Vin. And she's like, okay, then. She had to make sure that his feelings were really strong enough that, because she then gives a speech about how love is not easy for kings. And it might be easier in the long run if he didn't love the girl like he does. But she doesn't feel that's any reason to give up, which he thinks is strange from her. She says he thinks perhaps she's a little deeper than I've assumed. I don't know. What do you guys think about Tindwyl here and her opinions on love?
I almost thought Brandon's kind of extending the readers an olive branch here to Tindwyl, because she's such a hard person, and some readers may be like Vin, where they're like, well, I'm not sure how I feel about Ellen becoming this person, especially the kind of person that she's suggesting that he has to become, cold, commanding, and all the rest of that. So I think this is almost the opportunity for the reader to kind of like Tindwyl and be like, well, she obviously, she's saying all these things, she's doing all these things, but she also thinks that there are exceptions when it comes to loving another person. So I feel like this is kind of our moment to maybe see Tindwyl as a force for good instead of kind of this weird neutral force.
That's a fair point. Maybe it's just to like make the readers realize she's not so bad. The annotations here, he has a very small one about this section where he says, I think Tindwyl has lots of good points in her training. Some people rebel against the kinds of things that she's saying, but I think she has a good idea of what makes a leader, or at least one kind of leader. The problem is that's not the only kind that works. Still, in my mind, she knows that she has to be like that in order to react against Ellen's frivolousness. So maybe Joe's right, and he's trying to build in something here to show that she's not as bad as she seems. She's going hard on Ellen because he was so far in the other direction that she kind of has to. Next chapter, Quan says that Alendi was born of a humble family, yet married the daughter of a king. Whatever relevance
raises
that
the
might.
Question. Well, does Alendi have descendants still around somewhere? Did Rashek try and hunt them down and kill them after he killed Alendi? Or, like, does Alendi still have blood relatives out there?
This is an interesting question.
We were, because I mean, the question we had last book, which Joe was certain of, is like, she was the daughter of the Lord Ruler. Like, she wasn't Rashek's daughter, but she could be a descendant of the guy who was meant to have the power. Maybe. Red string, tinfoil hat.
Oh, I skipped at the end that Damu shows up and says that Lord Cett's daughter has shown up and she's looking for Breeze. Sorry, that's an important thing as we go into the next chapter. But no, you have a really good point. And it's actually, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but this line is related to a line from the last book in the logbook where Alendi is wondering, he's like, do I really, what proof do we really have that I'm this prophesied person? He says, my several marriages could give me a bloodless bond to the world's kings, in quotes, if you look at it the right way. So.
Oh, I had forgotten that.
He's had several marriages. At least one of them, we find out from Quan, is to the daughter of a king. Which I feel like he's kind of misleading us here, where he's like, my several marriages could give me the quote-unquote bloodless bond to the world's kings. Which is like, well, I guess, yeah, if you married a lot of women, then you're in a lot of different kingdoms, then you kind of... But no, at least one of them was actually the daughter of a king. So that is definitely a bond to one of the kings of the world. You kind of underplayed that one, Alendi.
Maybe you just like, I'm going to be the hero of ages. What are kings to a god?
I mean, at this point, I don't know that he... I don't know that he doesn't seem to have much idea about what's going to happen at the Well of Ascension. So I don't know if they see him as like a godlike figure. In fact, I think he even talks about wanting to like retire afterwards and go live somewhere warm. So he definitely didn't expect to become Emperor of the World.
Yeah, true.
And we meet Allrianne Cett. I don't know. What do you guys think of this? What a pink... Vin calls her like a pink powder puff or something here in a little bit. But she's something.
She's a sweet, naive girl who should not be in the middle of a fucking battle camp. Like, I agree with her. What the fuck was her dad thinking?
Oh, hold on. Before this discussion, I absolutely have to read this annotation. Because this is some behind-the-scenes stuff that never actually comes out in this book. So, Brandon says, the truth is that yes, indeed, Cett caught Breeze in bed with his daughter. In Breeze's defense, she kind of snuck in herself when he was sleeping and snuggled up to him. However, that was not why Cett chased Breeze out of his camp. You'll find out more about that later.
Oh.
So, okay. What do you guys think of this girl?
Well, good guy Breeze, trying to just do his thing, and this girl somehow is infatuated with him. What you gonna do?
She does seem to like him a lot in this chapter. And we start out with, who is it? Who says it? Ellen says, it looks like you were right about Breeze and Cett's daughter, Ham. And Ham is like dumbfounded. Like, I didn't. What?
I love that.
It's cute because
when is Ham ever lost for words?
It's true. He's like, I didn't expect to be right. And she hugs Breeze. And he has to be like, maybe you should introduce yourself to the king. King over here. Allrianne Cett, daughter of Lord Ashweather Cett, king of the Western Dominance. And she has run away from her dad's camp because it's so uncomfortable. She rarely had fresh water and she couldn't take a decent bath without the fear of peeping soldiers. Hadn't had a good conversation in weeks and before Bree showed up. You're right that she shouldn't be in this camp, judging from what we hear here, but I also find it hard to feel terribly sorry for her.
I don't know. Until we know more about her, I'm just like, look, you might not be the brightest bulb, but yeah, like, in the grand scheme of things, should not be in an army camp. In fact, that's probably more of a reason to not be in an army camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Breeze thinks she's pretty intelligent.
He does say that. She says Breeze, she had to see Breeze again. He was so charming and so wonderful. I wouldn't have expected Father to understand a man such as he. Laying it on a bit thick.
And Ham is just lapping this up in the background. It's like, Father drove him away. Because?
Ham is like, you are never living this down.
Ham is like, oh, good, it's my birthday.
And so Ellen gives her some rooms, and they have a little talk where everyone starts laughing at Breeze, and he's like, I fail to see the levity in this situation. Sure, this is going to make Cett more determined to kill us than before, and they just can't stop laughing. Ham's like, seeing you hugged by that courtly fluff cake. And I think Dockson's response is my favorite, where he's like, I'm not accustomed to you being the one to bring us a problem of this nature, Breeze. Honestly, I thought that we would be able to avoid unplanned female attachments now that Kel is gone. Which that just makes me want to hear more about Kelsier and Doxson's history. I assume this must be before he married Mare, when unplanned female attachments show up. I guess you could call.
You know, and the guy's probably lonely after his wife died. You know.
I don't think we saw it. Well, who knows? You could call Vin, I suppose, an unplanned female attachment, but not quite the same way.
Well,
he doesn't specify romantic, so.
Right. But it was Doxson that led Kelsier to Vin anyway.
That's true. So he planned a little bit of it at least. And
Yep.
Vin comes in and says, "What was that pink thing I just passed in the hallway?" And Breeze corrects her that it was red, and she says, "Close enough." It's just such a weird exchange where she doesn't know colors or something. I don't know. And Breeze says that they'll probably have to get a new pastry chef or have desserts ordered in because Allrianne is very particular about her pastries. Okay.
We skipped the bit where, like, when she's in the court, Ellen's listening to her, just like, I think I'm gonna need a drink.
We're gonna need a drink for this, for sure.
Lots of drinks.
Breeze is gonna need many.
Yep. Breeze always has a cup of wine in his hand, though. It's fine.
I think now Breeze is gonna need something stronger.
And
So, all right, Spook's been making moonshine. Let's go.
Spook Shine, the best in town.
Spook shine.
When you want to get tipsy but you don't have much, drink Spook Shine. It'll get you fucked up.
That went an interesting direction.
It'll make you talk like Spook does.
Yep.
Yeah. Wasn't with the drunk, everybody.
That explains it. He was drunk the whole time.
Yep. That's exactly what it was. Ever since he was a kid, he's just been wasted.
Wasn't with the wasted.
No, he's not trying to say wasn't. He's trying to say wasted.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Wasting with the waste wasing. Whammy wazzle.
Wormy wazzle. Okay. But when Vin comes in, Ellen says, "Oh yeah, apparently she and Breeze are something of an item." And Breeze is like, "Excuse me?" Which he's like, "We have not established that, despite what you just saw." And Vin's immediate reaction is, "That's disgusting, Breeze. You're old. She's young." Which is so Vin.
Yeah. Oh,
Last
and then
book, she was like, "Ellen, you must be twice my age."
Yeah. And then he goes for the kill, man. He's like, "Well, I remember a certain young woman being smitten with Kelsier."
Yeah, and that's not that right in front of Ellen too. That's harsh. She must have really irritated Breeze for him to immediately go for the throat like that.
Yeah.
I do think Breeze is being a bit vulnerable.
This did also sort of bring to mind the conversation that Kelsier and Vin had in the first book where he saw her as a daughter, and what you said in the annotations where Brandon said, "Oh yeah, I wanted to make it clear that there was a father-daughter relationship and nothing romantic in it." I'm just like, was this added in because people still wouldn't shut up about that? Because I could totally see that happening.
That's a good point. Totally could be.
I just spotted the bit where it's like Doxson says take her hostage. I was like, of course, it had to be Doxson.
He's the like calm, rational one. So he's the guy who puts out the rational suggestions that no one else wants to say. But Vin and Bree start arguing about like whether or not she was into Kelsier, and Ellen is finally like, no, this line of discussion is not helpful. And Doxson's like, hey, she could be a bargaining chip, and Vin's like, you mean take her hostage? And he says someone had to say it, Vin. But Ham points out rightly that it's not really a hostage if she came and asked to come and hang out with you.
Well, while that's true, like you could still hold her there and like, you know, make threats to the sort of a hostage. It's kind of like hostages just look, she just walked up and jumped in. We're not going to ignore that opportunity.
Look, I captured her. It was super hard.
I don't know. That's just the very Lannister thing to do. It's like, look, the person came up and just willingly came to us. Doesn't mean we can't do what we want with them.
Fair point. And so they're worried about what reaction Cett will have to this. And Breeze is like, well, but shouldn't we take her feelings into account? Which, yeah, okay, Breeze, you like the girl. I get it. And everyone looks to Ellen to make a decision, which he's kind of shocked by. He's like, wait, when did this happen? Oh, right, I'm king. Okay, I guess I'll decide. And he says, okay, she can stay. Maybe we'll have to use her later, but for now, let's wait on making that decision. And I told you guys last week, this is a pretty short chapter, and it really is. We've gotten to the end of it, except that Breeze looks relieved that Allrianne will be staying. So whether she snuck into his bed or not. He totally kind of likes her, it seems like.
Also, if he felt that her crush on him was totally out of the question, he could have done something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So he obviously likes her if he's let it get that far.
Well, and he argues with Vin when she says you're old and she's young. He's like, I'm not that old and she's not that young. So, yeah. I see you there, Breeze.
Vin's like, she looks like she's 12.
That is just the most... Like, everyone says that when you're talking about someone young who you've seen grown up. It's like, you can't be that old. You're like 12. It's always 12.
I don't think I'd ever noticed that, but I think you're right.
Never 13. Always 12.
Always 12, because then they're not a teenager.
I guess that makes sense.
That does make sense. So our final epigraph is, he could trade words with the finest of philosophers and had an impressive memory, nearly as good even as my own, yet was not argumentative. So at this point, he's just like throwing Alendi facts at us with these last two. To what purpose? Who knows?
Dear diary, Alendi does not reciprocate my crush.
Well, and you have to remember, he's apparently pounding this into like a big sheet of metal, which can't be super easy. So he has to think all of these things are relevant in some way.
Yep.
I mean, you have to be really naturally long-winded to be long-winded while pounding stuff into metal. And it was a big sheet, though. Who knows? It could be very, very long. We don't know how small his writing was on this giant sheet of metal.
That doesn't make the effort less.
Yeah. It might actually make the effort more, depending on what you're using to write with.
Yep.
So anyway, Vin's out in the mists, thinking stuff through, and kind of following Ham, and she has OreSeur howl so that it surprises Ham, and he kind of spins around and instinctively flares pewter so that she can sense that he's doing it and figure out that he's not the Kandra. And there's a little bit in the annotations about this, actually, that I was going to bring out, because this always seemed like a weird thing to me. I was like, look, just go up to Ham and be like, dude, burn some pewter real quick. You know we're looking for this thing. I'll tell you the Kandra can't burn pewter, so do it. Okay, good, we're done. I'm like, why go through all the theater? Because you also know the Kandra can't kill a human, so even if Ham wouldn't attack you if he was the Kandra. But anyway, so his notation on this section is, this chapter has another poetic introduction. I warned you about those, I believe. I hope this isn't too out of place here. Testing Ham in this way is something Vin really should have done earlier in the book. The problem is I had lots of things that I need to pack into a relatively short space of time in this book, and I did the things in order of importance. Oddly, testing the crew members took a lower precedence than getting Allrianne into the city or introducing Ellen's plan to deal with the warlords. But finally, we get
that is weird.
We get to work on the imposter plot. There are dozens of ways that Vin could have gotten Ham to burn pewter, but she wanted to do one where he didn't know she was there, and where he would use the metal reflexively. She also wanted to do it where she knew he was alone. That way she couldn't be fooled by someone burning pewter nearby to make it seem like Ham was burning it. So,
I mean, her bronze detection is pretty good. Surely that shouldn't be a problem.
That's what I thought. But this is the guy who created it, so apparently maybe you can be tricked. And I don't know if anyone thought that he would be, but Ham is not the Kandra. We know Joe doesn't. We know what Joe thinks. Joe's volcano theory is that the dog is the bad guy. We got that. Dak, Jaymee, at this point, have you guys come up with any theories? We've only narrowed it down by like one or two people since this started.
I do have a theory, but I'm going to leave it for predicaments.
Okay.
But I think originally I was sort of thinking Doxson would be a good person, especially if being able to sort of find out by the use of allomancy was a thing, because he's not an allomancer. It would be harder. Like, you couldn't apply that test, and he was in a position. So, like, yeah, I thought Doxson, which I'm still not like, not Doxson, but I have another idea. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Kandra and you know that allomancy weakness exists, that you can't replicate that, then I feel like you would want to choose the guy with no allomancy, right?
Well, I mean, if they're infiltrating the king's court, it's helpful to know who he's got around him and who is and is not an allomancer, if you can find that out, surely. Like, there are spies everywhere around the city. They can probably find that information out somehow.
Might not be public knowledge who is and is not an allomancer. That's a good point.
Yeah. I think initially when, like, the imposter plot came up, I think Ham actually was my top pick the first episode, just because Ham's the nicest guy in the crew, and I thought that would be shocking if it turned out to be him. But I don't actually think I really thought much about who it is, because I'm just waiting for more options to present themselves. I'm just like, I don't know enough to make a call one way or the other that isn't just a stab in the dark. So
That's fair. I think you're right. I remember you talking about Ham because I was like, oh, that's interesting because he's the only one with like a family that would notice if he was different. So yeah, but it's not Ham.
Yeah.
His children are not orphans now, or well, fatherless. They have a mom.
Thank God. If Ham dies,
if Ham dies, we revolt.
Riot.
And then Ham and Vin have a conversation about how to get around someone burning at him because she reveals that she is out, which really smart, not revealing that to anyone before you knew that they weren't the traitor, the spy. That had never even occurred to me, but yeah, that was a good thing not to go around just telling everyone. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts? Because what it comes down to is Ham does not have much helpful suggestion on how to get around Adium. So knowing as much as we know, do you guys have any ideas?
So, I mean, first of all, she didn't mention it to anyone before now, but if OreSeur was close by and he's that Kandra, then now they're going to find out that she's out of Adium.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as getting around Allomancers with Adium goes, I mean, I guess the only thing I could think of is if you, like, were able to somehow double team a Mistborn in a way where they didn't know the other person was there, maybe with a Kandra or OreSeur, you know, to try to make it look like you knew things were happening before they were. Maybe that would be a way to fool someone, but more than likely, I think Ham's suggestion is the best. It's like you either have to get the drop on them, or you have to put them in a situation where they, even if they know what's about to happen, they can't escape it.
Yeah, his are definitely the most logical. I agree.
I'd sort of thought that maybe the Duralumin could be used with a combination of other metals that they've already got access to enhance it. So I know they mentioned again, like with the Adium, yes, it gives you what might happen in the future, but it also gives you that clarity for that really quick reaction. And I think it's when they burn tin, because it's like really sharpening their senses. And I know like Vin's used it before, like if she's a bit disoriented or something, to sort of pull herself back together. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking maybe a combination of that pewter for the strength and all that sort of stuff. If she's going to enhance what she's burning at the time, yes, I mean, it also gets rid of everything, but that might be enough that she needs to get around, especially when the Duralumin, it's not commonly known even amongst Mistborn. Yeah, and that would be why Ham doesn't know about it too, I guess.
She may be the only one. Well, her and Ham was there when they tested, but it didn't actually do anything then. She may be the only one who knows about Duralumin as far as we know and what it does.
Yep.
Yeah, has she told anyone?
No, I don't think so.
We haven't seen her tell anyone since she discovered what it did.
Not even OreSeur knows that, I don't think.
OreSeur was there when she used it and like got knocked down by the force of like because her tin got enhanced so much that like the sound of her own heart basically knocked her down with how loud it was. And he saw that happen, but I don't know that she explained. I don't think she did explain because Zane showed up right after that. So yeah, maybe that nobody knows. Interesting. Now you get me thinking, like, what would Duralumin do with various other things? And especially the weird ones like gold. Like, what does it do with that?
I've just always wondered, she's already good at piercing copper clouds with by burning her bronze. If she applied Duralumin to that, like, what the hell would that do?
Well, we know that's what she did to figure out what Breeze was soothing, was she applied Duralumin to the bronze. But yeah,
but if she was like out on patrol and like searching for people.
Interesting questions.
But as for how to defeat an Atium user, the only thing I could come up with was the Alfred in the Dark Knight situation. It's like, we burned the forest down.
For some reason, when you said Alfred in the Dark Knight, my mind immediately went to Alfred from Batman Begins, where he hits the guy with the thing, and he's like, "Man, I hope you weren't one of the fire brigade."
Well, I mean, Ham did say get the drop on him, so once again, Alfred knows how to take on Allomancers.
Just burn the city down. That'll get the Allomancer. They can't escape fire. I'm okay with
Or,
that.
like, or, just burn down the enemy army's camp.
Or a building, trap him in the building and set it on fire. I don't know how you burn down a camp like out on the open field or whatever, unless there's like burnable grass around it. Maybe that would work.
Well, if they got palisades made out of wood, you just fire the wooden palisades and trap them
yeah.
inside. Although I guess a Mistborn could just drop a few coins and jump over that, so maybe that wouldn't work.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get a question where she's like, "Wait, my test." She thinks that her test is a good one until she realizes he said that they couldn't replicate allomantic powers from people they ate, but he did not say Kandra couldn't be an allomancer on his own. And I don't know if that had ever occurred to anyone that might be a thing.
I don't know. It comes back to what does a Kandra do with atium?
Well, yeah, they that is how you pay them. So that's a good question. And he doesn't want to answer her question at first, and then eventually he kind of does anyway, which is the beginning of their conversation that we talked about at the beginning of the episode, where she wants to try to get to know him, and he kind of doesn't want her to get to know him. And she says they start this conversation, and Vin's like, we got to figure out a way to make this relationship work. You hate me, I hate you, whatever. Shouldn't actually say that, but that's kind of the thing. It's like we don't get along, but we got to figure out how to make this work. And he says, "Why do you hate me?" And this is a really interesting part that I also wanted to pull out of the annotations here, because he says, obviously the most important events in this chapter deal with Vin and OreSeur and their relationship. The real reason why she hates him is something that I hope you've been wondering about, because the he ate Kelsier argument is intended to fall flat for the readers. Vin's smarter than that, as OreSeur said. So eating Kelsier's body is a little dumb thing. A person who grew up on the streets would not be bothered by something like that. It's simple, if brutal, but particularly not for as long as Vin has held a grudge against OreSeur. And he says, this is why. She did love Kelsier, not romantically perhaps, though her emotions weren't as simple at the time as she now likes to think. Either way, Kelsier's death affected her greatly, and focusing on OreSeur, the one who knew the real plan and didn't stop him, gave her something to hate, to be mad at, because she couldn't hate Kelsier, but she could resent the one that let him die. So that's what comes out of the beginning of this conversation, is that the real reason she doesn't like him is because he's the one who knew all along that Kelsier was going to die, and he'd never said anything.
Well, now I feel like a dumbass for never picking up on that.
I think we talked a little bit before. Like, I'm pretty sure somebody mentioned that, like, he ate Kelsier is kind of a weird reason for her to be so upset, because he was just following his contract. But that leads us into this deeper discussion of different masters and how they treat him. And he doesn't want to talk about it. But she realizes I have to open up some, maybe a little too, to get him to open up. And they realize that they have shared some of the same experiences. People using you and beating on you and hating you despite the fact that they, are using you to benefit themselves. And OreSeur's like, how do you know all these things? And she's like, that's not just the way they treat Kandra. Kamen was the worst, and maybe the only one who actually recognized that she was a allomancer. But so it sucks to be a Kandra also, is what we're learning here. Joe's going to have to amend his song.
Yeah. But also, like, not at all surprising. It's like, all right, so we know they force other humans to be treated like absolute garbage. Of course, the non-humans are going to get treated like that too.
Mm-hmm.
With the added fear of, like, maybe these ones will turn out to be like the Koloss and just, like, fucking murderous monsters.
Yeah, and, I mean, he points out these, like, they're scared of him because he eats them and could impersonate them. And even though they know that he has this contract that says that they won't do exactly that, they still have deep down this feeling of, like, oh, that's something that would eat me and take my place. And he also has his little, where he points out that, have you ever been beaten by a master who knows that no matter how hard he hits you, you won't die? And that all he has to do is get you a new set of bones and you'll be ready the next day to go?
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Oh my god.
Really? That's where you went. Okay.
Oh, you guys don't like Jack Nicholson?
Of all the things, man.
Haters.
I like Jack Nicholson. I just didn't like that movie.
Not the best Joker.
It came out in 1989. Give the guy a break. Give the movie a break. Let's see you make a better Batman movie in 1989.
Challenge accepted.
Well,
It's called Doc
1989
Brown.
was the year I was born, so like if I made a movie in that year, if I made any movie that year, I'd be impressed.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
That'd be impressive.
Sitting there
I
in
know.
diapers complaining about Batman.
I just don't like Tim Burton.
There's a lot of Tim Burton that I like that one more than the second one. So
Oh God, don't get me started on that one. Anyway,
You know.
moving on.
yeah, right.
Hey,
we don't
don't
need to
get
get
me
into ranking
started.
Batman movies.
I did think back to the book though. I did think this was just a really sad moment for the Kandra. Just their lives are so horrible, and that the only way that they've been able to integrate back into society without people being absolutely terrified of them is to have this contract. And then, you know, when he says the contract is life, he's not kidding. Like, the only reason they're able to exist in this world is because they have a contract that basically says you can't do that. And then, you know, everything bad that they do is because they've done it at their master's bidding. It's like, it's actually a really sad existence when they probably want to be just chilling out, being bone-eating blobs that are a bit more sophisticated. It's just really sad for them.
Well, yeah, and he even points out that he's like, your people have legends about us, like the mysteries that steal your shape. We're the thing that you use to frighten your children. Is stories about us. So do you really think that your society could ever accept us? And it's like, yeah, okay, that's a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's like, I can't break the contract because it is like, if I do that, that could lead to genocide against my people.
Yep.
I ain't gonna be responsible for that.
Yeah, he says that they tried long ago to hide among human society, but your people found us and they started to destroy us. They used Mistborn to hunt us down and almost completely destroyed us before we came up with the contract. So yeah, what Jaymee said is exactly the thing. It's like the contract is what keeps them alive. And he even talks about not being able to leave again, even when he's not on the contract. That just means he has to go back to the Kandra homeland and is not allowed to leave again. He can be free for 2 years, but he would have to stay in the Kandra homeland because you can't leave there unless you're on a contract. But Vin does, in this whole conversation, pick up on the fact that, wait, Mistborn, huh? Mistborn are the important thing that he talks about. The reason that the Kandra can't fight is because of the Mistborn. Something
So
is
they're gonna
hidden.
be able to do something to find Kandra, which is probably how she'll detect the spy.
Yeah, could be. Well, I guess unless Joe is right, because then you wouldn't be able to.
True.
It's insidious.
Also, this does confirm what I've been wondering, is that the Kandra do have a homeland somewhere. Like, okay, where is the land of the blob monsters?
We really haven't explored much of the world other than Luthadel, so it could be like anywhere. They could have been upstairs at the conventicle of Saran for all we know. Marsh went up and was like, "Hey, Kandra, what's going on up here? Did the others leave anything behind?"
No one left a note on the fridge.
All power to his blobbiness, the Kandra King.
The biggest blob of them all.
And I like that the whole conversation ends with him being like, "You know what? You're not my worst master." That's probably a compliment.
I thought he was going to go on and be like, my worst master was Fred. Man, did Fred treat me bad. And like tell a whole story about how awful his master was.
It's like, oh, sorry, Genie.
It's just you've just opened up this world now. Like, this poor Kandra is like, oh, finally, okay, I can let all this out. And now he's just going to be sobbing for no reason, and Vin can't handle OreSeur anymore because now he's just this emotion filled.
He always wants to talk about
Yeah.
his childhood, and she's got to be a therapist.
Yeah.
And people are walking past and just like, why is the dog so sad?
Wasn't there a sitcom where that happened? She like wanted her boyfriend to open up, and then he did, and it
was
stop.
Friends.
Oh yeah.
It was Friends. It
Oh,
was
it
Rachel
Bruce Willis.
and
Yeah, it was Bruce
Bruce
Willis.
Willis,
Yeah.
Oh
I
man.
totally forgot that. I'd almost forgotten that Bruce Willis was even in that show, but good times. He was a weird guest star on that show. So was Brad Pitt.
I think he lost a bet with Matthew Perry. when they were doing the whole 9 yards.
When they were doing the whole 9 yards.
He's like, hey, you got to come on the show. No, I'm not doing that. Well, I bet you a whole 9 yards will make a ton of money. You're on. Oh, I guess I was wrong.
I think that actually was the bet.
Oh, no, I have to look that up in a minute, but that's amazing. I want to watch the whole 9 yards again. I haven't seen that in a while. It's a great movie. Okay, sorry. Back to what we're doing. Vince, I mean, really, I think I agree with Dak that this is one of the better kind of moments in the book so far, is finally seeing these two open up and start building a relationship with each other. It's really nice after what we've seen of them so far.
It gives a lot to the book in that we finally have Vin actually being able to talk to someone, because I feel like she hasn't really been able to talk to even Elend about her issues, and she finally gets to open up to someone here, while at the same time getting OreSeur to open up about his issues. And as a bonus, we get to learn a lot more about the Kandra, which we've been hungry about for a book and a half by now.
Right. Almost since the beginning of the Final Empire, when we first hear about these guys.
Yeah. So it's just, there's a lot to really dig into here and sink your teeth into, and it's just so satisfying as a reader to get to that.
Random side note, IMDb says that the losing a bet thing was an urban legend. In People magazine, it said that Willis agreed to his guest stint on Friends simply because he and Matthew Perry thought it would be fun.
Well, that's nice, at least.
So, yeah. Okay. I like the bet story better, too. I was trying to find out what this bet exactly was. But no. Okay. Anyway, so after this really nice conversation, we kind of wind down by having Vin think about, maybe I should just go and kill those king guys out there. Which I've been saying from the beginning. I feel like I've mentioned several times. It's like Vin could just go and take them out. It's fine. But there's reasons why maybe she shouldn't do that. I get it.
And now straps neck, she could just go, "Who's your daddy?"
Oh.
She's thinking about this now, but she knows that Zane is with Straff, so I'm just confused as to why she's now thinking, oh, I should maybe do this. Because she's going to have to go up against him, I assume.
I guess it would depend. Yeah, if she made a lot of noise going in, then Zane would definitely probably show up. But, I mean, she's a stealthy assassin. She might be able to make it in.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this guy's watching, the Watcher, if you will, is watching her too closely. Yeah. Who watches the Watchman?
And then the Mist Spirit starts to creep into here. And she's so distracted that she doesn't hear what OreSeur hears. There's somebody walking around out there in the darkness, in the mist. And it turns out it's Sazed. So that's good. And Sazed is out there wandering around like, I was wondering how long it can take you to find me. I'm just out here like waiting for you. And he says, I have news of a rather disconcerting nature. And she says, what is it? And he says, problems, Lady Vin. Problems and troubles. So that is the end of our 3 chapters. Sazed has made it back. I don't know if anyone wasn't expecting him to be back this soon, but he made it to town, I guess. So any last thoughts about Sazed or about these chapters before we get into predicaments?
Well, I'm just really glad that Sazed made it back. He did make it back quicker than I thought, and I'm really excited to see what they do now that they're going to have the information about the Kolos army.
Yep. Feels like the band's finally all back together. Maybe something cool will happen.
We may have to do that in predicaments. Like, what do you guys think that they're going to do with this new information?
Haven't got that far yet.
Okay, well, let's get into it. Predicaments section. Predictions for what is going to happen. I'm going to elect somebody. Joe, you can go first. What do you got for us?
Oh, I got to go first, huh? Okay. So, predictions. So, kind of to keep on that same path, I hope that the conversation, even if it's not really OreSeur, I hope the conversation between she and that Kandra was genuine. I hope that she and he, even if he ends up being a spy, maybe he does a double turn, a double cross, because he's building up a relationship with her, and which I know they saying the contract is life and he can't disobey his contract. So if he's really under contract with somebody else, pretending to be under her contract, then that's kind of a weird area to get into, because I don't know how that would work for his contract. It's like, because if he's spying on her as per his contract with somebody else, I don't know what the ramifications are for him. But Yeah, I hope that's a genuine conversation, even if it's not actually OreSeur and she having it. So I'd be interested to see where that's going. I really want Sazed to take Vin out of Luthadel. I want her to go on an adventure. Like we've been saying, it's like we kind of feel trapped in Luthadel right now because they're being besieged, and it's just kind of a weird deal, you know. Even though pretty much the entire book in the last book took place in Luthadel, it's almost like there was more freedom in that last book than we're feeling now, even though they were all working in secret.
You don't feel trapped because they didn't feel trapped.
Right, exactly.
We were in the same place.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping that Sazed takes her on a whirlwind adventure up north. I really want to see the Terrace land. I hope before the end of this series we get to. I predict, I'm going to just say it's going to happen. I hope. I predict we'll get to see Terrace possibly, and maybe even stumble into the land of the Kandra. My guess is that it's also up north, maybe past Terrace. I don't know.
I was going to say, you think they hang out together like the Kandra and the Terrace are buddy-buddy?
Nah, I think, because Alendi, his first encounter with these mist creatures was up past that north area, so maybe that's where the mist wraiths, the Kandra also hang out, are up in the far north. So I predict we'll get to see those maybe eventually. That'd be great. And I still predict that this plan is not going to go super great. I don't know how this conversation is going to go with Straff, but my guess is things are not going to go Ellen's way. I like what Jaymee and Dak mentioned about the coins thing maybe being a bigger deal. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where things go.
I feel like when I got to this point, I was very excited to see what happens in this meeting with Straff. Like, Ellen talking to his dad again for the first time, and Vin being there. Like, Vin does not seem like the kind to take some shit off his dad. So I was really excited for that, personally. But anyway. Jaymee, your turn. What do you have for us?
So I am really looking forward to the story that's unfolding in the epigraphs. I think we actually got a name for I think it's the prophecy, the anticipation.
Yep.
So I think now that Sazed is back, and obviously he's piecing together that there's the problems with the mist beings, he's going to talk to Vin about it. They're going to talk about not Alendi, Quan's writings from the conventicle. I think we're going to start to hear more about that now, especially now that we've given it a name as well. So I think, it won't be very long till we find out about what the prophecy actually was, and we'll be able to start piecing together maybe who we think the prophecy is really talking about. And there's little hints unfolding in there, so I'm really excited to see what comes there. I don't so much have a prediction at this point on who I think the prophecy is about, but I think we will start to be predicting those sorts of things. My main prediction for this time, I'm really concerned what OreSeur is hiding about the Kandra. Like, he was we believe he's very open in this last chapter that we read, and starting to piece things together there, but he's always really reluctant to answer questions about what they can and can't do with allomancy. And then Vin raises the question, do they have allomantic powers? I sort of thought, can they mimic the powers? Can they mimic the pulses or something? So is it possible that Vin could actually sense that, and maybe their pulses are a bit different because she's more finely tuned to it? Maybe she'll be able to figure out who it is based on that. But I just don't feel like it's going to be, even though OreSeur is saying, yep, your plan will work, I'm not convinced that it's going to be that simple. I have a question, actually. Can the Kandra survive without bones? Like, what do they become? Can they just shed their bones and be a mist blob?
I feel like, I think we've seen the mist wraith at least, like, crawling around and stuff. I guess it had some bones in it when it was following Vin and Kelsier, but you got to figure that they have to be able to move at least somewhat to find bones in the first place. Just regular mist wraiths. If Kandra are related to mist wraiths, then probably, I don't know. That's interesting.
Possibly. So, well, depending on how that works, my thoughts are we've got Zane filling Vin with why are you playing their games, filling her head with a whole bunch of uncertainty, questioning everything. We've got these freshly shed bones. I'm starting to think that maybe there actually isn't an imposter at this time, that when the bones were found, but now there's that whole feeling of who do we trust? There is an imposter, which would actually be a really clever move from Straff or Cett or someone to go, you know what, there's not actually, let's create distrust and let's break down your team from inside. If a Kandra could get in there, shed the bones. Well, no, they were freshly shed though. So there is a Kandra, but maybe he didn't take a body straight away. My other question is, how the hell did Pink Puff get in with no one seeing, like no one's pointed it out? Like, I mean, Demo's come and gone, yeah, there's this person here. She's come to talk to you. But like, I feel like she would be very noticeable. What if she's a Kandra? What if they've taken her bones and delivered them now straight to them? They don't know her, except like Breeze knows her, but the team don't know her very well. They don't know if she's got allomantic ability or not. So I'm kind of thinking that she would be a great position to be an imposter, and we're so concentrated on Straff and his army at the moment, to have someone also coming in from Cett's army would make total sense. That's
really interesting. So if I guess he told us the bones were freshly shed, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were shed there. I guess if for example, someone in Cett's army, Cett has his own Kandra, he says, okay, I'm going to give you a new body, which at the very least we know that they can throw out one set of bones and move over and eat a new set of bones. So they must be somewhat mobile to do that. But so say he's like, here, leave your body, I give you a new body. They take those bones and quickly somehow sneak them into the palace within a few hours of them being shed. Then it could look like a freshly shed set of bones, right?
Yeah.
And then that's actually really interesting, because if you then send in Allrianne or whatever, and this is really your spy, they're looking for a spy who they know must have been there before she got there, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, exactly. Oh, maybe this is someone that we can trust because we know she's not the spy, or at least not that kind of spy. Ooh.
And Bree says she's really intelligent as well, even though she's coming across as this absolute ditz. She's really smart. That would be a perfect person to be a spy in general, whether she's a Kandra or not, I guess. But I think it would probably be easier for a Kandra. Like, it would be a great role for a Kandra to play as well, and they can, really make the most of it. But then be in the position like close to Breeze, not necessarily close to the king, but Breeze is one of the advisors, and Breeze likes her. Breeze trusts her. So I think that would be an excellent position for an imposter, especially if they go, you know what, we're going to keep this one hostage, or let's hang on to her until we absolutely need to use her. It's now their choice to keep her around, not necessarily her choice to be there. So,
interesting.
Yes, that's my theory for this week.
That one's very well thought out once again. I like that.
I tried to be a little bit like out there with it, and then I was like, I've put so much reason into this again. Damn it.
It can't be your volcanoes when it's that although I keep calling OreSeur like Joe's volcanoes, and he's constantly like, see, this supports my theory and this supports my theory, and I'm just like, whatever, volcanoes. So maybe it's not fair. Okay. Okay, Dak, what do you got?
I don't really have too much beyond the super obvious ones that, Sazed is back, so he's gonna tell Vin about the mists, and she's gonna want to know all about that. I think Sazed is now finally gonna have the time to read Quan's entire board, and I think that there's probably going to be something hidden on there, which is going to lead them to go to the well. I think, because it's something to do with how the epigraphs are all building up. It's going to talk about more stuff of what went down at the well, and they're just like, all right, we need to go there and figure this shit out. So I think that's what's going to lead them up that way. I think Allrianne is a spy. I don't think she's a Kandra, but I do think that she's not quite as ditzy as she lets on, because there's got to be some reason Daddy brought her to the war. It just blows my mind that they would have someone who's just very light and fluffy and wants nothing but pastries to bring to a war effort. So
Yeah.
So I think that's a persona that she's putting on, and she is ideally placed to be Cett's spy in the capital.
Maybe she's Cett's
Yeah.
Mistborn. So you're going to have Vin, you're going to have Pink Puff, and you're
Ooh.
going to have Zane fight it out.
Or
As the Mist-
just random thought. It might not be that he wanted to bring her for a reason. It might be there was a reason he did not want to leave her behind.
Also true.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you say that she could be a Mistborn, I think the bad guy in Kick-Ass was Red Mist, and so now I think, oh, cool,
Yep.
Pink Mist. That's her name now.
She wasn't even really wearing pink. Bree said that it was red, but Vin calls it pink.
Yeah, Pink Puff, Pink Mist. There we go. Plus, yeah, we're already like confused about how to pronounce her name, so Pink Mist. That's nice and easy.
Nah, that is easy to pronounce. You're not wrong.
But yeah, as I don't really have much else to predict, as I said, like this chapter has convinced me to backflip on what I've been harping on about for several chapters now. I no longer think OreSeur is going to turn out to be a traitor. In fact, now I'm actually thinking the Adium will run out or the contract will expire or whatever, because we still don't know how long that's got to last. But
Right.
over time, he's going to feel like Vin's actually not so bad, so he might just say, you know what, you're not the only one who had a lot to learn about friendship, and I've learned.
I thought I was teaching you, but really you were teaching me.
Aww.
There was two footprints in the sand, and now there's just one. It's when you carried me.
Yeah, I get it.
Is it? Yeah. The dog prints disappeared.
The dog prince. Yep.
My best friend, my
Prince,
my
that's
best
how you
friend,
say
the bone-eating dog blob monster.
Yeah. Weekends with OreSeur.
Weekend at the Lord Rulers. Sorry, I was trying to think of somebody dead for Weekend at Bernie's, but I couldn't get
Yeah.
it. Okay.
It's like, sorry, like just the one last addendum. It's like, because that's the thing we keep overlooking. We assume Vin, potentially Sazed. I think we've thrown Marsh out there as well. We don't know who else would travel up to the well. We're like, well, if Vin leaves, OreSeur's going to follow. So, you know, that'll be a nice little road trip. The Mistborn girl, the Terraceman, and the dog.
Maybe Allrianne will go and keep them company, and they can eat pastries.
We got to do. Well, she doesn't make the pastries. She takes them.
That's a fair point. Yeah. She'll bring her
Especially
pastry
imported
chef along.
pastries. Just dial up Uber Eats and I need some pastry.
No, we want the road trip movie to start. Everyone's waiting for it. Okay.
Start singing "Moving Right Along" from the Muppets.
So this week, one email is what we got. It is from Angela, although she notes in the signature, not the one that has written in before. So new Angela. Hi, new Angela.
Okay.
Hi, new Angela.
Hello.
She says, "Hi, Sanderlanche crew. I've been listening to your podcast from the beginning, and I'm loving it. It's fun to re-experience the Mistborn series, my favorite of Sanderson's, this way. The predicaments and random references to other shows and books have me laughing most of the time. The best part is when someone gets a prediction right, and bonus points when it's one that they think is a throwaway. I still haven't decided if I'm particularly unobservant, since many of the twists that Dak, Jaymee, and Joe have predicted are things that I never saw coming, or if I didn't see them coming because the Mistborn series was my first experience with epic fantasy. Some of the crew have clearly read other epic fantasy, so maybe they are just more familiar with the tropes and the ways to turn them on their head than I was. That may be true. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I've read any other fantasy or much other fantasy like this before the Mistborn, but that was many, many years ago. So
This would probably be my first sort of big epic fantasy book as well. But I think the thing that really gives us that ability to start predicting things is because we are dissecting in such small chunks and we're looking for things too. Whereas I think if we were to sit down and just read the book cover to cover, a lot of it you wouldn't be thinking about it so much. You would just continue reading it and just be absorbed in the story. So yeah, I think that's probably why we're picking things up.
I think some things are probably more designed to draw your attention to think about them. Like the Who's the Traitor plot is kind of out there for you to be like, oh, hey, let's see if we can figure out who the traitor is along with Vin, while other things are more in the background.
So I really I agree with Jaymee. I feel like the format in which we do things really lends itself to being able to kind of see what maybe things are out there. Plus, honestly, some of my I would say probably 50 to 60% of the predictions that I make in the show, I'm formulating as we're talking. So not only are we taking these books kind of piece by piece, but we're also, because of the medium in which we're doing it, I think we're also kind of feeding off each other's ideas to come up with some of our more interesting theories or more thought out theories. So that just lends itself to, I think, completely to the format in which we're doing this. Because if I was reading this all myself, I don't know that I would really, first of all, I mean, if I'm just reading it to read it, like most readers, I'm sure I'm just experiencing it as I'm reading it, right? So I'm not sitting there thinking about each chapter. I'm just moving on to the next chapter and getting.
No one's forcing you to predict things when you're just reading
exactly.
Yourself. I'm here like, make a prediction right now.
Exactly. Because you guys will hear it too. Sometimes he'll, like today, he asked me to go first, and I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, let me formulate something. It's like I don't have these ideas fully formulated and ready to go before we start the show each time. Maybe I should. Maybe that would make me even better at it if I sat down and tried to like research the things that we read. But I feel like my ideas flow more organically because of the way that we're reading the book. So I'm glad you guys enjoy the predictions. I enjoy like thinking on my feet and thinking about things critically that way, because it's not something you get to do even in like, say, a school setting normally. You don't usually think on your feet when you're studying a book in school. So I kind of like that aspect to this medium, especially. It's because we're all discussing it and kind of thinking up ideas right on the spot. So
I must say that Dak's volcano theory really shaped my thoughts about Adium in the first book. You know, always had that in the back of my head, going, yep, that's what Adium is.
Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm just having to go.
Adium plus duralumin is somehow going to equal volcanoes after all. It's built in there somewhere deep.
Well, Brandon Sanderson, if you're listening,
again,
in one of your future books.
This is still one of the big mysteries that we don't know how it was solved. So, like, before the Lord Ruler came about, the sky was yellow. Oh, sorry, the sun was yellow, the sky was blue.
The sky was yellow and the sun was blue. That would be fun.
Jesus. But yeah, it's like, and then he did something, and then the sky was covered with ash. Where'd the ash come from? The volcanoes. The volcanoes were caused somehow. They weren't naturally there. Or if they were, then they were dormant and weren't, blanketing everything in ash. So there is a reason I went for fucking volcanoes, God damn it.
Maybe it's, your version of the Big Bang. There was Atium only, and then boom, everything was there.
It's all there in black and white, folks. If you're not on board with the volcano train, it's really your own fault.
Buy more red string, damn it. Tie it to the pictures on the wall. Make it happen.
Okay. So the rest of her email
Sorry, New Angela.
Email.
Yeah, I love that the crew has no idea if or when predictions will come true. The episode today amused me, not because there was discussion or speculation on something that doesn't happen in the Mistborn set, but it's a thing in the next group of Mistborn books, and I'm looking forward to seeing the reactions when we get there. I'm going to have to go back and listen to the episode before last again, because I'm not sure which bit she's touched on there. But and then
I feel like that might have been the episode where we talked about gunslingers with like elemental powers. I remember we talked about that.
Could be. And then so she has this is the best paragraph because it's about B, obviously. So she says, Data, I'm super impressed with your poker face when the predictions come in and your ability to discuss the book while seemingly not giving anything away. It cracks me up when you say something that foreshadows or does give away something, but the crew has no idea. Today's episode had one of those in there, and it wasn't even for this series. I hope you read this part. No. Your sigh or sound of frustration is perfect, because her next sentence is, I hope you read this part on the show, because I know if I was in the crew's shoes, it would drive me crazy trying to figure out what you said and how long it's going to take to find out what you were talking about.
Yes, our cluelessness is amusing to you people.
Yes, we're clueless as always. I think we all just need to smoke a J and calm down.
And then she ends with, "Wasing to the time of next." Angela, not the one that is written in before. Thank you, Angela. You're awesome.
Thann you for embracing our sign off.
Yeah.
Yes. Good email.
Great.
It might amuse you to know Dak and I listen back to the podcast in the car when we're together. And often we hear the episodes where I think we're probably maybe 4 weeks behind where we're actually recording. So we'll hear our theories again and things that Data said, and we go, oh, damn it, he was baiting us. We've learnt things since and going, oh, my God.
Well, like the amount of times we're sitting there, we're like driving around and like someone says something that is just completely incorrect and you just go, ba-bow.
Yeah.
What?
We like when it's wrong. The other day we were listening to something that Joe had said. He'd made a prediction, and every time he said something, I was like, "Ding, that's right. Ding, that's right."
It's like the noise that the game show makes when you make a wrong noise. Wrong
awesome.
answer. Sorry.
Or the amount of times I've jinxed myself. Like I'm listening and I'm so absorbed in the conversation, and then I just start talking in the car and I'm speaking the exact same words that I was speaking in the podcast at the same time.
You've actually talked over yourself with the exact words a few times now. It's actually quite odd.
Yeah.
I've done the same thing when I'm editing. I'm sitting here and somebody says something and I'm like, oh, well, obviously I should say this in response, and then I say that thing and I'm like, oh, well, see, there you go.
See, I was right. Must be true. I've said it twice.
Right? Okay, so thank you, Angela. And if anyone else wants to send us emails, thesanderlanche@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at thesanderlanche. You can find us on, you can leave us comments on Podbean. You can find us on Facebook. Oh, I'm really glad I said that because somebody actually sent us a message on Facebook and I forgot to, I was going to read it and I forgot that it existed until I said that. See, there's a reason to say these same things every single episode because I'm dumb and forget things. So let me pull that up real quick. Aha. So Gerard sent us a message on Facebook and said, I've deactivated my social...
Gerard Way from MCR?
No.
Oh, okay. We mentioned My Chemical Romance. I thought it might have been him, but whatever.
Bit of a long bow to draw.
I have deactivated my social media accounts and have been listening via Google Podcasts, so I can't give you the much-deserved follows. Hey, that's okay. I understand. Sometimes I feel the need to get away from social media. It's a hellscape. He says, I'm from Belfast, Ireland, and have listened weekly. I'm loving the Kandra conspiracies at the moment. Some very interesting predicaments, to say the least. Love the jokes regarding Irish and Welsh accents. You're completely correct. I can barely understand some of the rural people. Yeah, I'd forgotten we made those too.
Yeah.
Glad you started covering a few chapters at a time. I hope this satisfies the first-time readers a lot more. Keep up the good work. And my response in Facebook messaging was thanks, which I was like, I feel like I should say more than that, but really that says it all. I'm like, hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Belfast, I've been there. I tried to go to the Titanic Museum, but it was closed for a private event.
How rude.
Yeah.
How dare they have a private event the one day that you're there?
I don't know. We were literally there one day, and that's what we wanted to do. And we walked across Belfast to get there, and then it was closed. Great town!
Joe loves your town, Gerard, except for the the Titanic Museum being closed one day.
It's a beautiful city, really cool place. Would go again.
10 out of 10. Well, 9 out of 10 because of the museum thing, but 10 out of 10.
Right. Close.
So, thanks everybody. When I'm reading stuff, obviously the emails is the place that I remember the most to go to because I almost forgot Gerard's Facebook thing. So if you want to get stuff read, that's probably the safest place to send it is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. But I do look at and manage all the other stuff. So you can put comments and things anywhere. It's okay. I'll see them. I just can't promise I will remember them later, apparently. So
also, if you feel like leaving us a rating on one of those places.
Yes, that thing. Do that. We have several ratings on Apple Podcasts, which is nice. I think we're up to like 6 or 7.
Okay, I just looked in the app and it still says we got none.
Yeah.
It may be that like it's in Australia, you get a separate.
It could be, I guess.
Podcasty.
I think that's true. I think that's actually true because I've heard other podcasts say if you want to rate us and you live outside of the country, do it here instead. So I don't know that it shows up on ours if somebody does it from outside of the country.
We have 6 5-star ratings. No, anything less than 5-star, we're awesome. So,
Thank you, listeners.
Thank you, listeners. And next week, be listening or be reading chapters 23, 24, and 25. That is 3 more chapters for the next time. And once again, the middle chapter is really short. It's shorter even than this one. The middle one on this time. So, anyway, Thanks for listening, everyone. Tune in next week for more adventures of the Sanderlanche. wuzzing to the time of next.
And we try to keep a little beauty in the world. All that died, we keep it in our hands. We are the maiden boys. Keep it in our hands. We tell it to the page. We never let it fade.